Dark elves are this light-skinned. I'd hate to see what light elves look like. Thor: The Dark World is directed by Alan Taylor, written by Christopher Yost, Christopher Marcus, and Stephen McFeely. This stars Chris Hemsworth, Natalie Portman, Tom Hiddleston, and Christopher Eccleston. Now, in Thor: The Dark World, Jane, played by Natalie Portman, is infected by this substance called the Aether. This awakens this race of people called the Dark Elves who want to get this Aether. And she's in danger, so Thor has to come in and get her, and they take her to Asgard to try and figure out how to get it out of her. But it becomes clear that Thor needs to enlist the help of Loki if he wants to stop the Dark Elves from taking over. Now, the fun thing about the Thor movies is that when you look at the whole Avengers universe, the Thor movies are the only ones that are really allowed to be independent because they take place in another realm. So, whereas in Iron Man 3, I was asking where's Shield, where's Captain America, where's Black Widow, and all that. Here, you don't really ask those questions because they can't really get to Asgard. However, it does kind of give a bit more pressure for them to tie into the other movies because they have a greater risk of being just completely independent. Somehow they have to figure out how to tie in to the rest of the universe, and they actually do here. All in all, though Thor: The Dark World isn't quite solid just yet, however, I do think there's lots of fun to be had. Okay, first of all, this stuff looks pretty freaking cool. Like, everything looks really, really great. We finally get a good sense of, Asgard, of the place they inhabit. We don't just see it from afar, like the big cityscape, which looks great, by the way. Like, everything is so detailed, looks much better from the first Thor movie. And, I just really appreciate how we get to see, let's say, like, little pubs where they, drink, just the insides of chambers and stuff, the prison, just little details like this make Asgard feel like a living, breathing world. The visual effects also are incredible. Like, you get lots of newfangled stuff with Asgard. You get their ships and whatnot. You get lots of different effects, and it all really really looks real. There's a very big Star Trek-ish vibe to this thing because I believe Star Trek Into Darkness came out before this movie, and when I saw Thor: The Dark World, I really kind of connected. Like, it actually felt like it's in the same universe. But as impressive and almost seamless as the visual effects are, I really do appreciate also that they really did rely on lots of practical effects also in the costumes and the makeup. Costumes look really, really good. Like, the Asgardians look really great. The Dark Elves actually look really, really awesome because of that weird white face mask thing, and just the overall armor really separates them from the Asgardians. And just the makeup also is really great. Like, the one used for Malekith, who's the leader of the Dark Elves, looks authentic. What I love about the look of this movie also is that on certain worlds, because we get to go to some of the other realms this time, on some of these there's like some different look to it. Whenever they go to the titular Dark World, it looks very, it's like green and black and stuff, and again, it feels very Star Trek-ish, like the part Into Darkness when they go to the Klingon homeworld. Like, Dark World looks like the Klingon homeworld, and there's a part when Thor and Malekith are inside the Aether, and it's all red, and you can barely see anything. And I love that choice of kind of obscuring the action because it's just chaotic, and I love it. And the reds are so nice. The colors here are super vivid. I love it. Now, the plot is interesting, if only for the lore stuff. It is a very very straightforward plot. It's definitely more character driven, I think, than it is real plot driven. Although there is this big thing happening called the convergence, which really kind of pushes things forward. But ultimately, this plot is interesting to follow just because we get lots of cool insight into this whole universe they live in with the Dark Elves, and we get to see Jotunheim a bit. We get to see other places. It's one thing I love though. Thank you for not taking place on Earth. I mean, I'm not complaining about the first Thor. It's just fun and nice to finally see different places. But again, this is a character driven piece, and I think the characters do just keep getting deeper. With Thor, the problem is you can't really go too far with him because, he has pretty much hit his peak. He's very noble at this point. But, there's lots of cool stuff with Loki that happens. There's lots of cool stuff that happens with the other characters. And again, the interplay between Thor and Loki is just so fun to watch. It is really the relationship that drives this whole series forward. But in terms of the other characters, Sif and the Warriors 4, 3, 4. Anyway, Sif, at least Sif gets lots of more screen time, and Thor's mother also gets a cool fight scene. Like I said, in terms of acting, Chris Hemsworth really exudes that nobility in his character. But again, Tom Hiddleston again steals the show. The Loki here is a bit more cheeky. He's a bit funnier, and you can really get the sense that he is the god of mischief here. Because in the past movies, it was just you kind of just saw it in the scheming, but here you really do see it just the way he talks, the way he likes playing around and stuff. I like this because it helps kind of define Thor's character more. There's a clear divide between the two, and you can it's not doesn't feel like Loki's overshadowing Thor as much anymore. Everyone else in the cast is great. Also, of course, Anthony Hopkins is great as Odin. Idris Elba is great as Heimdall. Stellan Skarsgård is great as Eric Selvig, who is a bit crazier at this point. Also, he's actually pretty funny. And Christopher Eccleston's Malekith plays the role well, despite not really having that much to work with. Now, director Alan Taylor, his Game of Thrones experience really shows because this movie is really a huge scale project. I mean, it's even bigger than the first Thor movie, and there's lots of inter-realm things going on. I think he handles it well. Like he knows how to sell fantasy that we don't really have to actively suspend our disbelief. It's just like he really sells the world and makes it believable, makes it feel tangible. I really do think he works better in this fantasy element. I mean, the human stuff isn't handled as well, although it's fine. But really, most of this movie is fantasy anyway, so I think he was a good choice. I do have quite a few problems with this movie, though. First of all, again with the Marvel villain problem. The villain here is really, really weak. I'm sorry. Malekith just does not, he doesn't feel very threatening, and he doesn't really leave much of an impact on the viewer after you leave the theater. You don't really remember this movie for Malekith. Also, these some supporting characters, especially Darcy, played by Kat Dennings, and this new intern dude, they just feel really unneeded. Whereas Stellan Skarsgård was funny because it was so strange for him to be funny. Here they just kind of push Darcy's humor a bit too much, and it feels like it's crashing the party. And that's one thing. Also, the humor. I don't know. Like when you have humor in something like Iron Man, it kind of feels a bit more welcome because that's what Tony Stark's character is like. That's the world he inhabits. Here in Thor, it really is very much more serious-minded. I'm not saying they can't have humor. Some of the humor works from Loki and Eric Selvig, but like this kind of humor that Kat Dennings and the other intern have, it feels completely out of place. And they also had a problem with there's a certain twist that happens in this movie near the end. I can't say what it is, but I don't think they handled it very well because before it happens, there's so many kind of obvious things they do to kind of point you towards the twist. But it's so hard to talk about it. Let's just say that in order for this twist to work, you had to feel a certain emotion about something. But they don't, they completely take you away from that emotion. So it kind of makes you feel weird. And then you start thinking, oh, wait, it's probably a twist happening. And then twist happens. So overall, Thor: The Dark World is just an okay movie, unfortunately. I gotta be honest, it might be my least favorite among all the Marvel movies at this point. I don't know, but that's not saying I didn't like it because I still do like it. I like all these Marvel movies; they're all really entertaining, and for one, like this really stepped up the world building thing. And if anything, this is just fun to watch on like an aesthetic level. So that's my review of Thor: The Dark World. What do you guys think of it? Have you seen it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you think, please leave me a comment and let's have a conversation.